Hey, everybody. Here we are. That's right. Right over there. Nope, over there. Chula Vista Fire Department. We're in Chula Vista, another on location with sports stories. Hey, today's going to be a great one. Spencer Kelly and Aaron Price. They're from Two Lawyers Who Talk College Sports podcast, and they get after it on NCAA stuff. And as you have been following the sports, as you know, this is big right now. We're current. We do what we do. Let's go. Let's start the show. I'm a Venice, California born, Los Angeles based sports fan. One that has played, coached, announced, and promoted sports my whole life. My love affair with sports started in my own backyard and has led me to this podcast. Thanks to the support of the Amateur Athletic Union in East Bay, I'm excited to bring you Sports Stories with Denny Lennon.
Sports Stories with Denny Lennon aims to bring its subscribers interesting, unique, and uplifting stories. You can find us at sportstoriespodcast.com. We drop audio and video podcasts every Thursday and go live on YouTube Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Many guests have shared their stories with host Denny Lennon, such as Super Bowl and BCS champions Brendan Ion Badejo, Peter Boulware, and Trevor Lawrence, three-time Olympic gold medalist Karch Karai, Kentucky Derby winner Doug O'Neill, NCAA champions Toby Bailey and St. John Smith, Hall of Famers Jimmy Lennon Jr., Rudy Tomjanovich, world champions Boom Boom Mancini and Tim Leary, AAU Sullivan Award winners Catherine Plummer, Sabrina Ionescu, and Spencer Lee. We've also had best-selling authors Wesley King and Wayne Coffey, and our sports stories favorite, Norm Bass, the first African-American to play two professional sports post-World War II. Become a friend of the show on Patreon, and you can help keep the dream alive. Go to patreon.com/Denny Lennon or go to our website to see all of our social media links. If you have an interesting, unique, or uplifting story to tell, contact us on sportstoriespodcast.com.
We're coming to you live from the West Coast. That's right, Jinbo's in the 7428 studio. I'm on location at beautiful downtown Chula Vista. Yep, where Mario Lopez grew up. That's right, Slater. He played Greg Louganis in a made-for-TV movie, and it's Slater/Louganis who beat out Karch Karai for the AAU Sullivan Award. All roads lead to Sports Stories, and it's live at 5. Hey, everybody. Am I back on?
You are back on. You're live.
Hi. Oh, good. Well, I don't have you in my ear anymore, producer. Hi, everybody. Did you get to see the whole Mario Lopez thing? You see, Mario Lopez was on Saved by the Bell, and that led him to play Greg Louganis, right? The Olympic diver. And then Greg Louganis won the Sullivan Award instead of Karch Karai, and Karch Karai was our guest. All roads lead to Sports Stories. And here's the other thing. Mario Lopez, while we're on the subject, also took over for Mark Steinis at Entertainment Tonight. Mark Steinis, another of our guests. All right, so we're killing it, right? Mario Lopez, Chula Vista, and two guys who talk college sports, two lawyers who talk college sports. We're on fire. All right, is my family here? I hope so. Is my St. Mark people? How about my St. Bernard people? Come on, you got to pile on. We got to do some stories. Let's go. What about my VBC and my AAU people? Top 5 states outside of California watching the show. Oregon. Well, that makes sense. I think my boys, the lawyers, are from Oregon. Texas, Arizona, Florida, and Ohio. That's it. Okay. So we got that going on. All right. We got up this week. Let's see what's coming up. My producer is on my computer and not in my ear anymore, but we'll see what we can wing it.
All right. Solo on this week.
Okay. All right. This week on Sports Stories, Tomorrow is Thursday. You know what was very popular? We dropped in uninterrupted with Karch. Karch, uninterrupted. We decided we're going to follow up with another one. Probably the best podcast we've done. That's right. Norm Bass, the 1960s baseball with the Kansas City A's. He also played with the Denver Broncos, first African-American post-World War II to play two professional sports. He followed that up later in life with a bronze medal as a Paralympic athlete in the Sydney Olympic Games. Not in in table tennis. That's right. That's my boy Norm. Norm's the best. Hey, the happy hour show of record. That's us. Friday, we're coming up with Gary Gilliam. Now, Gary Gilliam is a former Penn State and Seattle Seahawk high-level football player who, after spending 5 years with the Seattle, he wants to give back. He's the founder and CEO of The Bridge that spans the tide between rich and poor. Gary certainly has been giving back, and is a terrific story. What a great story. I'm really looking forward to connecting with him on the show Friday and getting the word out on our guy who will be on the Friday show. So hopefully you'll be here as well, joining us for that. That's going to be an important show. Right. We are off and running. My guests today, Spencer Kelly and Aaron Price, are two lawyers who talk college sports podcasts. And what a time to bring them on while everything is going crazy in college sports right now in response to, of course, this COVID virus. The Big Ten and the Pac-12 fall sports have been canceled, which, of course, we know in the fall, that includes college football. That's a beast in and of itself. We want to throw first to educate our viewers that may not know about this, our award-winning producer, Christine Jimbo. She's won a lot of awards. If you listen to the video podcast, you'll know that. But she put together this clip. Let's take a look, get ourselves educated with the clip, and then even more with our two lawyers.
The Big Ten and the Pac-12 conferences have canceled all fall sports for 2020, including college football. So far, other major conferences' football seasons, the SEC, for example, aren't canceled yet. Dr. Sheldon Jacobson told CBS Sports he expects a 30% to 50% infection rate of the approximately 13,000 players competing in football this season. Based on his research, he also projects 3 to 7 deaths among those players due to COVID-19. Using the hashtag #WeAreUnited, players posted a list of demands on the website, the Players Tribune, on August 2nd. The demands stated, because NCAA sports exploit college athletes physically, economically, and academically, and also disproportionately harm Black college athletes, #WeAreUnited. In rejecting the NCAA's claim that #Black Lives Matter while also systematically exploiting Black athletes nationwide. Because we are being asked to play sports in a pandemic in a system without enforced health and safety standards and without transparency about COVID cases on our teams, the risk to ourselves, our families, and our communities. #WeAreUnited. Those players were followed by a group of Big Ten athletes who posted their own proposal for the upcoming season in the Players Tribune on August 5th. They used the hashtag #BigTenUnited. They did not include any asks regarding compensation and emphasized that they were looking to work with the conference. But they did criticize the NCAA's coronavirus approach in stark terms. They wrote, quote, "The NCAA, which is known for its zeal for regulations and enforcement, has had ample time to prepare for the safe return of its athletes to competition, yet it has done nothing. Its laissez-faire approach is forcing each conference and each school to create its own plan, resulting in inconsistent policies, procedures, and protocols." Lamonte McDougal, Washington State defensive lineman, posted on Twitter, quote, "I agree with everything the movement is fighting, especially the health concerns, but not playing this season isn't an option for me. I got people that need to eat. So if the NCAA wants to use me as a lab rat, it is what it is." The SEC announced it will play its 10-game conference season, but has yet to announce its schedule. To help sort this all out, Sports Stories with Denny Lennon welcomes friends of the show, two lawyers who talk NCAA sports, Spencer Kelly and Aaron Price.
right, let's bring them on. Two lawyers who talk college sports podcast, Spencer Kelly and Aaron Price. Hello, guys.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good to
Hey,
see
how
you,
are ya?
fellas.
Thanks for
Yep.
having us
Hey,
on,
you know,
by
I,
the way.
I usually talk to lawyers when I'm in trouble, but this time I'm happy to have you on the show. Um, it,
All right,
right,
try our
right.
best. Yeah.
Hey, so I had a blast being on your podcast recently. My staff did a little investigative work, said it was your highest rated program to date. That accurate?
Yeah, it's up there for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
We really had a blast having you on too.
Yeah, check on that one. All right, so obviously, when we go to talk NCAA sports, the big elephant in the room is always college football. And then I guess I just kind of want to set the table a little bit, and then kind of dig in, and for you guys to help us understand a little bit better. So like basically post Civil War football emerges, and it's out of some of the colleges, and then by about 1905, there becomes this issue with people dying on the field. It was too violent a sport. The famous story of Teddy Roosevelt calling some of the college presidents into the Oval Office, and they have to codify this game to keep it safe. And this is in effect the emergence of the NCAA, which I guess you could say that. And then not only does it start to try to grapple with the collegiate football, but as other sports emerge, it becomes the governing body. Is that somewhat accurate?
I think that's basically it. That's the history of it. So yeah.
Okay, so now we're looking at the situation with college football and how it seems to me the NCAA, we know, or maybe people don't know, they don't control the bowl systems because the bowls are independently run, but
Yeah.
they're the prize at the end of the season for so many of the college football. But then there's the conferences that can set their own rules. But then, of course, those conferences have to align with what the NCAA mandates. So, can you explain why certain conferences are going to now cancel fall sports while others don't? And we haven't heard anything from the NCAA.
Yeah, so basically, my understanding is this. I mean, if you think about who controls college football, it's the South. The South controls college football. I mean, you think of Alabama, you think of the state of Mississippi, you think of Florida, you think of Georgia. I think that's sort of the pulse of college football. And so if you think of the South, what is the South doing? The South wants to be open. They want to be open. The coronavirus is there. They want to be safe, but they want to toss that aside a little bit. And they're playing football. Football is king in America, and so they want to play football. When you think about the West Coast, the Pac-12, maybe northern states a little bit, the Big Ten, that sort of thing, they don't see it exactly the same. And so the NCAA, I think, wants to stay out of this a little bit. The NCAA says, look, we control championships. The college football playoff really controls football. We're going to let you guys, they're almost like mini governors in a way. We're going to let you guys decide what you want to do. Good luck to you. But here's the deal. So the Pac-12 says, forget it. We don't want to do it. Big Ten says, we don't want to do it. Big 12 and SEC say, hey, we want to be open. Let's do it. We're playing football. And so I think that's sort of what this came down to, is a different philosophy of how they view the coronavirus. And so I think the NCAA doesn't want to get into the middle of any of this. And so they're going to let the conferences do it themselves, which I think they sort of have to, actually. And that's what's happened. And so that's where we're at a split right now. And again, I don't think Spencer thinks differently than I do. I think the SEC and the Big 12 are going to end up canceling it. Even if they start, it's not going to finish because they're not able to do a bubble system like the NBA can do, for example. You can't have kids all in one hotel at the same time in a bubble system together, safe. You're going to have people at parties. You're going to have people in the chow hall. You're going to have people playing together on different sports and doing different things and going different places and going to vacation. And then you're going to have outbreaks. And then you as a school, are you going to be comfortable having those outbreaks and having the media say, hey, Alabama has 13 people with coronavirus. What are they going to do? How are they going to mandate this? Are they out for 14 days? And what if one of those kids dies? I mean, what are they, what's going to happen? And so that's kind of where we're at right now in college football.
Okay, so I guess the other thing would be, do the rest of the fall sports are going to fall in line with what the conference decides, but the NCAA has much more control over those sports because they control the postseason or the championship brackets, right? Yep. So let's say we have this scenario where the SEC is the lone wolf and they're going to go forward with football, and maybe Nebraska, Iowa, and a few others decide that they're going to do it too. What's to stop collegiate women's volleyball teams from, in effect, doing the same thing? Will collegiate SEC volleyball continue, and could, in effect, like Nebraska or some one-offs from even the conferences outside of their join in, and would the NCAA recognize that and award a championship?
Yeah, I think that they're going to have a harder time doing that because the NCAA controls that championship. So I think what the NCAA could do in theory is just shut down those fall sports. They could just say, this isn't safe. We want all schools that play, these fall sports that have a championship to shut down. If you don't want to and you want to do your own thing, that's fine, but we're not going to recognize you as a champion. And so I think that in effect, they're going to have more control over those sports. I think they're going to have a harder time with those sports bouncing around. And so my gut tells me that won't happen as much. But with football, you're going to see them try to do it because it's the moneymaker, right? I mean, not all football programs make money, but many do, and many make millions and millions of dollars. And so the stakes are really essential to avoid mass layoffs and big problems that we're going to have if football doesn't go. The Pac-12 is going to have to tap into a loan system that they're working on right now. And so I think that you could see volleyball and some of those sports doing that. I think the NCAA is going to not want that, and they're going to do all they can to prevent it. And they're not going to recognize them as champions. Because my gut tells me right now, the NCAA doesn't want any sports to go, because they know once this starts, you're going to have outbreaks all over the place. It's going to look messy. And then the buck's going to stop with the NCAA. You didn't do enough to protect kids.
It could be a lot easier for those fall sports, though, to play in the spring, as far as women's volleyball, those types of things. That's what I think is probably going to happen, is the NCAA is going to say, we want you, fall sports, not football, to play in the spring. And you guys can do that, no problem.
If you look at some of the, I've been fortunate enough to be at games at Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Auburn, right? Those outside of, I'm a Southern California guy, so of course SC and UCLA and the like. But when you go there, I mean, like Ann Arbor, its population doubles on game days. The economy is thriving. And I mean, it's like the media rights, I think, alone for the Big Ten are like $2.5 billion. How does football, let alone the NCAA, grapple with these losses on the backside?
Yeah, I mean, they really can't. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, this is catastrophic. I mean, it's a great depression of pigskin in a lot of ways of college athletics. College athletics have been a broken model for some time, where you've had coaches making six figures and it costs, a ton of money. I mean, I used to travel with football with USC, I worked in compliance for football, and we would rent 1 or 2 planes and rent out a whole hotel and food and big spreads. I mean, it was 6 figures to travel to games. I mean, we would spend tons and tons of money. Now, football made money, but imagine these other smaller sports that don't make any money. They're all running in the red already as it is. And then to not have any competitions happening, they're not having any ticket sales, things aren't on TV. It's a full meltdown, honestly, actually. I've talked to some people that work in college athletics right now, and it's not just, things are tough. It's a crisis, actually. A full, Great Depression meltdown and what's going to end up happening is sort of a right sizing of college athletics, I think, over the next few years, where this is a good reason for colleges to use. We need to get things right with college sports. We love college sports. We love even the sports that don't make money, not revenue generating sports. Those are still really critical for those athletes and those coaches and the community to have those sports. But I think that you're going to see a right sizing over the next 3 or 4 years of cutting sports, unfortunately, and trimming budgets and trimming coaches' salaries to have it sort of make sense from a business perspective model, because things have shifted from the Ivy League days of Harvard and Yale to now it's a business generating model in college athletics, but it's running in the red. And so if you want it to be a business running model, you have to run it at least even or in the black. And so I think the coronavirus, unfortunately, was a good excuse or reason to start doing that. And so you're going to see a lot of layoffs coming up. They're already started. You're going to see more sports cut. And there's going to be really a crisis on their hands for the next year or two.
Spencer, do you think that this idea that the COVID is presenting an opportunity to refashion all of college sports? I mean, this idea that their likeness could be used to generate revenue that was going to start in 2022 or 23, like that, combined with now everybody's going to realize just how big of a moneymaker college football was. Is that going to dramatically change what we see in a couple of years from now?
Yeah, that I think what you're seeing is you're seeing the athletes kind of realize the power that they have, and they're going to start using this platform to try to generate more value for themselves. The problem with that is that's going to detract from the amateur model that's set up as it stands right now. And that's just going to create a lot of problems for universities and for compliance departments, and other legal issues that are going to arise as these athletes realize more and more power that they have. But the biggest issue, like I said, is that this is going to detract or take away from this amateur situation that we have, and you're going to have problems with student athletes, wanting more and more value out of themselves. And what does that do to the university? What does that do to the sports programs? And if you're dealing with but I think the biggest issue that you're going to have, though, and Aaron and I have talked about this, is NCAA sports are governed by Title IX, and Title IX requires basically equality between with the sports and with the scholarships and all of that. And so if you're giving money to the football players who are making the money for the university, you're also going to have to get money probably to the women's lacrosse team, the women's volleyball team. And how are you going to make that equal when those sports typically don't make the kind of money that football does? That's going to be the problem. And so then you give these athletes the opportunity to go out and make money on their name, likeness, and image. But then how do you make that equal? There's just a lot of problems and a lot of issues that are going to arise. And it's really going to, unfortunately, detract from the overall mission statement of college sports.
Right. Is there going to be, do you guys foresee a bigger impact beyond athletics, like to the actual economics of each school? I mean, the bigger the school, the bigger their stadium, the bigger they have outlaid for cashing in on college football. I mean, is that going to go beyond the athletic budget? Are any of these universities going to be forced, to not only eliminate athletics, but other departments that in effect are drained to the system?
Yeah, I mean, speaking from my perspective, when I worked at Oregon State, for example, Corvallis is a small college town. And on game days, not just football, but basketball and other sporting events, I mean, restaurants are packed, the community's buzzing. People move closer to live closer to the athletics and the action. So a lot of people are dependent in the community on those athletics and they their businesses thrive when college athletics are going. I mean, the pizza parlors packed, people are watching, that sort of thing. And so I think if things aren't going right, the community is affected too, and that stretches out to the community, right? And people are losing jobs, they're being laid off, businesses are slower. So it's not just athletic departments, but I think the university itself. I mean, there's been studies on this where when programs are winning, more people apply to go to that school, right? And so there's going to be, if programs aren't on or they're not winning, there's going to be less people applying to go to school there. And which is surprising to think, but people want to be associated with a winner, and people are going to be in that coffee shop or that pizza parlor when the games are on and people are around tailgating and that sort of thing. So there's going to be an economic trickle effect, I think, to the whole community. What do you think, Spencer?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only for the community, but also I think for the schools, as you point out. These schools really rely upon the money that is brought in by football and basketball specifically to generate the funds for their entire departments. So you're going to see mass layoffs. I think you're going to see a lot more situations like with Stanford where they're cutting 11 sports. I think you're going to see that even more with other universities where they're going to be starting to cut huge programs. And it's going to be we've talked about it frequently. This coronavirus, the coronavirus casualties. That's what we call it. It's just going to be sad because you're going to lose a lot of these. Especially the Olympic sports that are going to be canceled as these revenue generating sports aren't happening in the fall.
Yeah, that's interesting, and we'll get to a little bit later because I want you guys to kind of come in a little bit on the Stanford situation. We actually did a story on that a couple weeks ago, but just with college football, like what were the legal ramifications? For instance, like there's a $250 million apparel deal with certain like Big Ten schools. Now, if they're not playing how do generally those contracts work? I mean, are they locked in? Is there a out clause? Is there a, fatality clause? What is, like, are they going to have to pay a portion of this? Does that all, nobody would have pre-negotiated, well, in case a pandemic happens, right? So how do you see this playing out? Because Nike obviously is going to be able to protect their interests a lot more than Wisconsin will.
Yeah, I think for me, I think one, if you were a good lawyer, you would have made those out clauses, right? You're going to have just in case clauses, right? Whether it's a force majeure clause or something that says, hey, if this emergency happens, I'm getting out of this deal. I mean, you saw that happen with Under Armour, right? And Under Armour, and they're saying, look, UCLA isn't giving us what we think we need out of this deal. We made a record deal with UCLA. They have Chip Kelly and they have football and basketball, and the results in the field aren't where we expect them to be. They're not in the Rose Bowl. They're not in these big games. They're not making bowl games. They're struggling a little bit. So Under Armour thinks, the value we're giving you, we're not really getting it in return. We want our brand associated with the winner. We're not getting that out of you guys. And so I think we're going to get out of this deal. Now that's a little tough. I haven't seen the specifics of their contract of how they did that specifically, because I don't think you can just sort of change your mind, so to speak.
Right.
But if players aren't playing, and I think you could probably use a force majeure clause,
Absolutely.
Which is an emergency clause to get out of the contract. What do you think, Spencer?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's what they're going to use. The issue, though, I think that most of these bigger schools, the Ohio States and Michigans and USCs of the world, Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, they're not going to want to get rid of these schools. So they're going to do everything they can. My guess is they're already working together on an agreement that would allow them to continue to use their the Nikes or the Under Armours, that equipment, but just kind of take a pause. That's probably what's going to happen. They're just going to put a pause on it for a year. Maybe there's going to be some paybacks or some lack of payments that Nike or whatever would have to pay. But that's my guess. Again, we're in unprecedented times. I would be surprised if there's any contracts out there that have said, assuming a global pandemic happens, this is what,
I mean, we would have that, but other lawyers wouldn't, right? Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. I know you guys are on your game, but those Nike lawyers.
They don't know what they're talking.
This idea that, as I kind of brought up, that in effect, college football preceded the formation of the NCAA, so that there's these outlying circumstances that kind of work outside of that. Could the SEC just go SEC South, SEC North, or whatever, and then play one another and then claim the NCAA title, whereas the other fall sports are going to have to follow what the NCAA says? Is it that far down the road with football?
Yeah, I mean, college football playoff essentially controls the championship. And so, yeah, the SEC in effect could say it's just us, it's the SEC North versus South, and Alabama won it. And, and us as fans, I mean, I would put a huge asterisk next to that championship, of course, as a USC fan. But, I mean, in the end, it could happen in theory. And to be honest, I would tune in and watch it. I mean, if sports are on, I'm watching. I'm watching the NBA right now. And so I hope that happens. I hope the SEC decides to do it. But I think, I'm telling you, they're going to have a lot of political pressure when they start having some of these outbreaks, because they don't have a bubble that they can operate in, and to see what their resolve is at that point.
Speaking of political pressure, Trevor Lawrence got himself right in the middle of that. When you have your tweet retweeted by the president that isn't just a reality star that we can ignore, right? That's a different game than as when he retweets. And as a matter of fact, you guys, I had a chance to talk to Trevor not too long ago and asked him about winning both like the prestigious AAU Sullivan Award and then perhaps the Heisman this year, and then followed up with a heavy hitting journalistic question. So let's see if we could take a look at that. I'm going to bring up a couple names here. Doc Blanchard, 1945 Army, and Tim Tebow from Florida, 2007. And do you know why I brought up their two names?
Don't think so.
They both won the Heisman and the AAU Sullivan Award. So that's called a segue in my business. So what do you think about your chances for the Heisman next year?
Man, it'd be awesome. Obviously, as a kid, that's been, one of my dreams. But I think, for me, it's always been team first. So I'd much rather win a national championship. But hopefully, those go hand in hand. So that'd be awesome.
Trevor, I can't let you go too early before asking you. I don't know if you've seen any of my profile pictures, but I'm starting to let my hair grow in, and I wanted to see if you had any tips for me on hair care.
Man, I don't know. Just keep shampoo and conditioning.
Yes. Okay. That's what most people tell me. Hey, Trevor, appreciate you. And I know you're doing great work out there in the community. So congratulations on that, and best of luck tonight.
Hey, thank you so much.
Right on. I just like to show that I once talked to Trevor Lawrence. That's about it.
Well, I learned something. I was wondering about my hair care, and if nothing else from this podcast, I'm jealous of his hair. I mean, that's great.
You should start growing yours out here.
Shampoo and conditioner. All right from Trevor. We could hashtag that, get it started, just like we are united.
Trump will retweet it. Let's do it.
Why wouldn't he? I mean, his hair is fantastic. We've seen that. So let's move into just for one last second the fall sports. Obviously, I was going to bring up one other thing. Do you know, when I was doing research and I was working with a buddy of mine, his name's Gino. He was like, well, there is one other sport that preceded the formation of the NCAA, and that's men's rowing, because that was such a prestigious, high-end Ivy League sport before. And I was thinking, allegedly, they could probably buck the system and move forward and run their championships, couldn't they?
I mean, in theory, yeah, I think they could. I think the NCAA has their tentacles into them now, though. I mean, I think they're their thing, and so they've roped them in. They would rope in football if they could, but they're not. It's not going to happen.
Football is too powerful. Football is king, as Aaron said.
Yeah. But rowing's a great sport. It's definitely a blue blood sport, and I can appreciate the skill involved. I think, Spencer, you used to be a rower.
No, well, I have the body for a rower. Being a strong guy that I am. But no, I was not a rower.
Okay.
Well, we are the show of record for men's rowing, and women's rowing as well, but mostly men's rowing because it's outside of the NCAA purview. Hey, I wanted to move on to men's volleyball. You guys already brought it up about Stanford. It's an important story to us because we're involved heavily, the staff that runs Sports Stories, with AAU volleyball, indoor to an extent, but beach volleyball in particular. But we know a lot of these high-level boys and girls that come up and become men and women players in the collegiate ranks. So we got behind the men's volleyball program at Stanford to try to help get out the word about that. So let's look at this piece that we used a couple weeks ago, and then I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about it.
In a statement released July 8th by Stanford University to, quote, reduce the breadth of their athletics programs and staffing, Stanford will discontinue 11 of its 36 varsity sports upon the completion of the 2020-2021 academic year. The sports to be canceled are men's and women's fencing, field hockey, lightweight rowing, men's rowing, co-ed and women's sailing, squash, synchronized swimming, men's volleyball, and wrestling. The teams facing cancellation will be allowed to compete one final year should the ongoing pandemic allow for the upcoming season before they're discontinued at the varsity level. All of the affected sports will have the opportunity to transition to club status after they conclude their varsity season this year. These 11 programs consist of more than 240 student athletes and 22 coaches. These sports have a combined 20 national championships, 27 Olympic medals, and an untold number of academic and professional achievements. The press release further states the decision to discontinue these 11 varsity sports programs comes down primarily to finances and competitive excellence. It goes on, while painful, the discontinuation of these 11 sports at the varsity level will allow Stanford athletics to return to fiscal stability, ultimately enhancing the experience of the remaining student athletes and increasing their likelihood of competing for national championships for years to come. Stanford University has won 126 NCAA championships overall and is the nation's all-time leader. The men's volleyball team began in 1976 and has been to the NCAA Final Four 5 times, each time advancing to the championship match, winning twice in 1997 and 2010. It boasts 33 postseason tournament appearances, 8 conference championships, 20 first-team All-Americans, 23 national team players, and 11 U.S. Olympians. Of those, we have Kavika Soji and Matt Furbringer, who will join us on the show tonight. Teams were notified of the upcoming cancellation via Zoom and were given little prior notice of the restructuring. Just a few hours after Stanford Athletics released its plan to cut varsity men's volleyball, incoming freshman outside hitter Capono Brown started an online petition to save the program. Brown's petition has taken off and now has over 33,000 signatures and counting. Stanford Athletics, however, maintains that any future donations to terminated teams may be directed towards supporting them at the club level, should they establish a club sport after their 2020-2021 varsity campaign. The petition goes on to ask that Stanford give the men's volleyball team a chance to keep the program at Stanford. It states that volleyball is the second fastest growing boys sport in the United States. At the men's level, over 80 NCAA teams have been added in the last decade, including 6 last year at historically black colleges and universities. Capono Brown writes, "We believe we can find a way to fund our program if Stanford will work with us."
All right, guys. So, hi, Christine.
Sorry.
Our producer, our
not
award-winning
supposed to be
producer,
here.
jumped in there. There's a lot to unpack there, but there's a few questions I have for you guys that I find interesting. Okay, first of all, we had Kavika Shoji, Matt Furbinger, and Stephen Irvin, all Americans. 2 of those associated with those national title teams, and then we also had the editor of Stanford Daily on the show, Sabel Zhang. And so they broke it down, and it was a really interesting story because have you seen a sports program that has that kind of success, that was eliminated? Granted, it's a men's sport, not not football and or basketball, but not only that, but in a sport that's growing considerably at lower levels, and that it is so high profile D1. I mean, wrestling took the hit too, but like Stanford's won a couple NCAA titles. I was wondering what you thought of when you heard about this whole story, and in particular men's volleyball.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really sad, right? I mean, I did my undergrad at BYU, and I'm a big BYU fan. And BYU and Stanford have had a great rivalry for men's volleyball over the years. 2 very strong programs. So it's really sad to see Stanford choose those sports, and specifically men's volleyball. It was hard to see. I feel bad for the student athletes. I feel bad for the coaches. I'm bummed for Stanford and their men's volleyball program, and I hope that they can save the program. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, Stanford is one of the schools that can afford to lose some programs. They had the most in the Pac-12, and so they can stay over that threshold of the minimum number of sports that they sponsor and still be D1 and cut 11. USC couldn't do that, for example. They couldn't cut that many and still stay D1. But it's really sad. I mean, it's funny they mentioned fiscal and competitive excellence. Well, Stanford's a really wealthy school with a huge endowment, and volleyball has excellence. And so those reasons didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I'm hoping this turns into a situation where, sort of like Bowling Green baseball, where they were able to sort of drum up support from boosters and the fans and raise enough money to save the sport, that there's enough of a movement for Stanford to save men's volleyball. It's sad that men's sports, because of Title IX, are probably a little bit more at risk of being cut than women's, at least cut first. But it's sad for anybody. It's sad for the coaches and the players. And it doesn't make a lot of sense, I think, in Stanford's move right now. And so hopefully this gets changed. There's a movement. I think there is one that's growing, and I think Stanford's hopefully it comes back.
Yeah, indeed. It's a strong movement. I got 30,000 signatures, right out of the gate, and they've continued to build on that. They're also a sharp group of guys that have come out of that program that are going about it, what appears to me is the right way. They're not. They're trying to work through the right channels. But just legally speaking, a couple of things or internal mechanics. The endowment can't. What I heard was that endowment, although it may come off of athletic successes, can't be earmarked towards certain programs. Okay,
Right.
that's interesting. And and then the other idea of they're going to take whatever money comes in and spend it on a club program, even though you're going to earmark it for men's volleyball, because the men's volleyball guys, they feel like they could rally enough to endow the program. And is that something that you can do at a college?
Well, it depends. I mean, we talked about this on our podcast with the Bowling Green University, State University, the Falcons, as Aaron knows. They they initially cut their men's baseball program, and then they had this huge group of people, including Oral Hershiser, combine and generate funds and generate money, and they ended up saving the program. But it took an agreement between the school and this group of people trying to save the program to ultimately save the program, because it's ultimately up to the school, right, Aaron, to decide how they're going to spend the proceeds or whatever is generated. So if Stanford is willing to work with this group and actually use the money to save the program, then they can do that. But if Stanford is just dead set on, we're canceling this program and you guys can use it for club, then I don't know what power the student athletes or this group trying to save the volleyball program would have.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of par for the course of the things that are coming. You're going to see some sports that are cut that don't make sense at all. I mean, no sport really makes sense to cut. I'm not saying that, but baseball at Bowling Green didn't make a whole lot of sense either. And I think that what ends up happening is, volleyball has a number of scholarships, and it can kind of balance out for Title IX. And so I think that's a tough thing to talk about, but there's probably some truth to that if the numbers sort of add up, that some of those programs, wrestling, men's volleyball, they get put on, men's soccer, get put on the chopping block to make the numbers work for Title IX purposes. But it's a casualty that sort of falls and is really sad. And so, I'm wondering, even if they're able to drum up the money, if Stanford's going to be motivated to bring it back, because then that's going to have other effects that they're going to have to work on for Title IX purposes.
And what's the differences between private universities and either state schools and how they have to adhere to spending on their endowments or private donations?
Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, I think the private university would certainly have more leeway in how they use the money, and donations. State universities would have to earmark it and it specifically describe how the money is used. But that's a little bit above my pay grade as far as getting into the actual ins and outs of how the money is going to be spent. But yeah, I think private universities will certainly have more ability to use the money however they please.
Well, Aaron, I know you get a look at the USC Board of Trustees notes from their board meetings, because those must be made available to a guy like you. You can find out. You can probably tell me about their ophthalmologists or their oncologists and all kinds of fun people on their campus, I'm sure, or even how the president was behaving towards the end.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, but if I shared it, then probably right outside my door here, there'd be some black Suburbans that would show up.
Yeah, exactly.
There'd just be Spencer here. So
we're a team here. We don't want to lose them. So
okay. Yeah. Fair enough. The last thing I wanted to just ask you guys to speculate a little bit on, being part of the Amateur Athletic Union, we're in line with the United States Olympic Committee and so forth. So as inevitably some of these sports get eliminated from NCAA, the USOC is in no financial position to pick up the remains here. And I mean, how do some of these Olympic sports survive, if not somehow privatized, just to chase down advertisements and Olympic glory? I mean, are we looking at an idea in amateur sports that where we're just streamlined to the sports that make money on broadcast?
Yeah, I mean, that to me is, I love the Olympics. That's one of my favorite times of year when we get to watch these incredible athletes perform at extremely high level. I mean, I'll watch I'll watch shooting and,
Mm-hmm.
and basketball, or it doesn't matter to me. I love watching the Olympics. And I think that is going to be a casualty, because the Olympic programs really rely upon these student athletes at the college level to kind of hone their skills and kind of weed out the people who are going to be able to come out and be Olympians. And without college sports providing that kind of gateway into the Olympics, I don't know how they're going to do it. It's going to be hard to do it through the club level. What do you think, Aaron?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that, if you don't have some sort of minor league system set up, I mean, it ends up being, if you don't have D1 sports to go to, it's tough, because that D1 model, I mean, you're getting the nutrition, you're getting the coaching, you're getting the publicity. You really need that to get to maybe the next level, the pro level, or professional level, or to the Olympics, that sort of thing. I think if you kind of carve that out, I'm not sure how people go from high school to that next level. I'm not sure what's going to happen. But I think the free market, like we were just Spencer and I were just talking about this, the free market's going to develop and modify itself. It's going to adapt and overcome, as my wife might say. She was in the military. And they're going to find a way to adapt and overcome. And there's going to be some new thing that's going to come out. And I know Denny's going to get right on it and probably dominate that business.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll be all over it. Well, it's really interesting. One of the reasons we went to the live show format had to, we were just doing video podcasts that were coming out on our Thursdays or whatever. But one of the reasons we went to is I had to sit down with Dr. Burt Mandelbaum. And he's a chief medical officer to like the World Cup, to the Olympic Games stuff. And and it was right before we hit our quarantine period. And he said, humans have survived for thousands of years. And the reason is they know that adversity is the engine of unimagined possibilities. Mm-hmm. And that's what kind of prompted us to shoot into this kind of these live shows to support what the Thursday shows were. And then we've opened ourselves up to a whole new host of stories and people that could come on. So I would imagine, to your point, to your wife, being part of the military, you adapt and overcome. I kind of get that. But it just seems like to redevelop a whole model that's been developed is going to be tricky.
Yeah. And the coronavirus really brought that on. And I think in a lot of areas in our life where suddenly businesses, the theaters, restaurants,
mm-hmm.
are shifting the way they do things, right? On the fly, nobody expected it. And I think that's going to happen with some of the Olympic sports at the collegiate level, but they're going to adapt, they're going to overcome. There's going to be new models that happen, and good things are going to come out, and good athletes are still going to participate. People are still going to realize their dreams. There's good things ahead. It's just going to be done differently.
No doubt about it. Well, hey, guys, I appreciate you coming on the show. I hope you'll come on, because I got a feeling this won't be the last time that we're faced with some unique circumstances that we need to flesh out.
Yeah, happy to come on anytime.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks, fellas. Appreciate you having you.
See you.
Right on. Later from Chula Vista. All right. Okay. That was fun. Actually, there's going to be a lot coming down the pipe here. Football, we always lead with football in this country. I mean, I got it as an athletic director at a small all-girls school, right? When you went to the league meetings, if football was involved, you discussed football first, football second, third, fourth, and you eventually got to the other stuff later. I mean, football leads this country, and I'm part of this whole thing because I love it. Like, I love being a football coach. I love watching that sport at all levels. I go to high school on Friday. I watch Saturdays and I watch Sundays. I mean, no doubt about it. Football is big, but at what cost, right? And what will it look like this fall, let alone in the future? And then what's the collateral damage to the side? So hopefully we can keep fleshing all of that out on this show, and we'll certainly lean on those two lawyers as we move forward. Okay, man, I didn't get enough jokes off in this one. Usually I goof around more, but it was serious stuff. Box Cobbler will help us out. That I know. So we got Box Cobbler, kick it out, Buck, and we're out. We're going to see you on Friday. That's going to be a good show as well. Hopefully you'll join us there. We'll still be in Chula Vista. I don't know. At some point, I guess I'll get to leave. Not sure exactly when. All right. Thanks for being here.
Now they got a job, and it's okay. They've got a view, they got something to say. And if sports stories is all for you, then there's really nothing else I can do but stand by them or not at all. I'm gonna stand by them Oh yeah, and there's really nothing else I can do, 'cause Sports Stories is really for you.
Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is supported by the AAU. Find a local event and join at aausports.org. And remember, you can catch your favorite amateur sports live stream, replays, and highlights at ballertv.com. Sports Stories, along with East Bay, supports the Heroes Movement, a nonprofit that bridges the gap from mental or physical therapy to getting strong again through strength and conditioning workouts. This free service is available for any veteran of the United States Armed Forces. Visit heroesmovementusa.org for more information. Sports Stories, along with thousands of people across the country, also supports the My Stuff Bags Foundation, a nonprofit that provides traumatized children with new belongings and new hope. Learn more at mystuffbags.org. Sports Stories with Denny Lennon is a production of Sports Stories, Inc. and is available on Apple Podcasts and YouTube or wherever you listen and watch. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and give us a review. It really helps spread the word. You can find all our social media links, archives, and other info on our website at sportstoriespodcast.com. Special thanks to the John R. Wooden Course and Wooden's Wisdom. Original music for Sports Stories is courtesy of Lennon Music Productions. Original images by Sienna Lennon Photography. Sports Stories is produced by Christine Jimbo and Marley Rice. Sports Stories is edited by Bob McCall. Additional staff include Ray Castro, Teresa Dolan, Jake Downey, Carlos Haro, and Buck Magic Lennon. Kick it out, Buck!
Yeah, kick it out! Kick it out! Yeah, buddy! Way to kick it out! Good job!